What is up, you guys, and welcome back to your Average Joe Sports Network. I'm your host, Drew Hoover, and this is my first video with my new camera stand. Hopefully it will make my videos look a lot better. And as some of you may know, I had just unveiled my new logo and I got a lot of good feedback on it. And speaking of feedback, like I said, as you watch these videos, and if there's things that I can do better, like I said, I'm constantly getting better, learning about the craft of video editing and graphic design. But if you guys, can give me your feedback on how I can make this channel better, please let me know in my comments below. And like I said, if you know me on Facebook and Instagram, don't forget to contact me through Messenger. And now let's get this final segment of Draft Needs started, because we're going to end with the NFC South, which means we get to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, your Super Bowl champions. And pretty much the Buccaneers had the quickest turnaround of recent memory. The last memory I could think of was 1999, when the St. Louis Rams under Kurt Warner became the greatest show on turf and ended up winning the Super Bowl against the Tennessee Titans. Obviously that changed with Tom Brady, who's a big free agent signing. They got Rob Gronkowski to come out of retirement, and everyone just rallied out, so. And not only that, most of the starters, in fact 22 of the original starters from the Super Bowl are returning for 2021. So experts are wondering, what can they do to improve this team with little needs that are glaring and obvious to the naked eye. So when I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they could use help in the secondary. As good as the Buccaneers were, they allowed almost 4,000 yards in the regular season. And even though their pass rush got to the quarterback 48 times, they still allowed passers to get a 93 completion percentage, 93 passer rating, and a 69 completion percentage. So they still allowed quarterbacks to succeed. So pretty much if the pass rusher couldn't get to them, they were able to advance the ball and get into the end zone. So I feel like they do need some help on that back end. Obviously they got Antoine Winfield Jr. from last year, who's a good safety, but I feel like at the defensive back position is where they're going to address in the first round. Unfortunately, there's news that there's going to be a lot of corners taken early in this NFL draft, which means guys like Patrick Etienne and J.C. Horn, even Greg Newsome, I've heard, has gotten a lot of track and could go off early in this draft. So makes you wonder who is left for the picking at number 32. And so there's a cornerback named Eric Stokes, cornerback from Georgia. At 6'1", 194 pounds, this guy is an ultimate playmaker. He's got the instincts and he's got the closing speed to make an impact. He ran a 4.29 at his pro day, so he's one of the fastest 40-yard times we've had this year. And not only that, but he's physical enough to fight off contact with a wide receiver and also be part of the run support or be part of a corner blitz. When I look at all these attributes, I feel like Eric Stokes has a lot to offer for the Buccaneers on the defensive side. So what happens for the rest of them? Well, you look at the offensive side, they're pretty solid on offensive line. They signed back Leonard Fournette and they still have Ronald Jones. And on the wide receiver perspective, they got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Rob Gronkowski all coming back. So, but they didn't sign Antonio Brown yet. So it makes you wonder if they're looking for an upgrade. Scotty Miller did prove well at the slot position, but I feel like they do need some depth because, Chris Godwin did struggle with injuries last year. So there's a guy that I feel like might be a risk, but I feel like opens up his offense to a lot of new things, and that is Amari Smith-Marsette, wide receiver from Iowa at 6'1", 181 pounds. This guy plays faster than he ran at his 40-yard at 4.5, which is still pretty decent. But when you talk about a guy that plays in special teams as a returner, you expect it to be more. But nonetheless, he is used in many different ways. When you talk about reverses, when you talk about bubble screens, I got to see this guy in person to a lot of his games since I lived in Iowa, and this guy plays more physical than he appears, similar to Devontae Smith, who I've mentioned before. Unfortunately, Nate Stanley wasn't the most accurate deep throw passer, but nonetheless, when he was going for smith-marsette down the field, he made some good catches down the field, and I feel like he could be a great addition to that Tampa Bay offense. And now let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. And the top 5 keeps bringing in more news, more juicy news. When San Francisco traded in, then the talk was, who are they gonna pick? And then obviously when you talk about after all those quarterbacks are picked, now you talk about Atlanta Falcons. Do they pick the 4th straight quarterback out of that? Do they pick a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance? Do they let someone else trade up to the number 4 spot to get their quarterback and accumulate more picks? Because honestly, there's a lot of needs at offensive line, at all levels of the defense, with defensive line, linebacker, and cornerback. But I feel like they should trade back, because I will mention Kyle Pitts, because he, in the last few weeks, has gotten a lot of ground, and people are more and more thinking that he's going to be, the pick right there, not because of the need, but really because of the best player available. But to me, I've been wanting this for a long time. The guy I'm going to mention, it may not happen, but then again, a lot of running backs seem to slip into the second round, so it's all things considered, it could still happen. But I feel like they need to keep an eye on this running back so it doesn't slip through their fingers. And his name is Travis Etienne, running back from Clemson, at 5'10", 250 pounds. And he ran a 4.45 at his scouting combine. This guy, even when you talk about an offense that had Trevor Lawrence, one of the best quarterback prospects, he was the guy that was actually being the ACC Player of the Year. And I feel like I may have a different opinion than most people, but I feel like he was the one that carried that offense. And whenever he couldn't run the ball, it was noticed. And I think that was evident in that championship game against LSU. LSU was able to limit Travis Etienne in that game, so it was mostly on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders, and he just couldn't out-throw Joe Burrow in that game. And so I feel like Travis Etienne is, when you talk about the way he was involved in that offense and the way he could be involved in this offense, they hired Arthur Smith. This was the first time in a while that they've had an offensive-minded head coach. And like I said, they want to get Matt Ryan a Super Bowl. Everyone talks about getting your Cinderella story. You talk about John Elway. You talk about Peyton Manning, Ray Lewis, Jerome Bettis, guys who ended their career with a Super Bowl championship. But back to Elway, the huge part why he got that championship was because they got a running back named Terrell Davis, a guy that can rush for 2,000 yards in a season, and also rush for 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. They got John Elway his first Vince Lombardi trophy. And so when I look at Arthur Smith and the success he had in Tennessee with Derrick Henry, I feel like they need to somehow, some way, whether it's trading down there was a mock draft that had the Patriots trading up to number 4. I think at number 15, Travis Etienne would be a likely spot for him to go. Perhaps the Falcons can even trade up from the second round to the bottom of the first. I think that would make a lot of experts happy. But I don't care what it is. I feel like Travis Etienne is a guy that they need to get their hands on. But let's focus on the defensive side for now, because there's a lot of glaring needs, and I'm going to start with the pass rushers here because, McKinley and Beasley are long gone. They don't have that edge rusher. They don't have the pressure like they used to. They still have Grady Jarrett in the middle of that defense, but nonetheless, they lack the ability to cause pressure. Now, I did mention when I was talking about the Minnesota Vikings that they were able to get pressure on Kirk Cousins and the Vikings that day, but I still feel like they would like an upgrade at the defensive end position. And there's a guy that's been climbing up board, so he may not even be available in the second round. But again, considering that the value of edge rushers and the quality of edge rushers in this draft, the Falcons might be lucky to get him in the second round. And that is Azeez Lujiri, defensive end from Georgia. I hope I said that right. Again, if I mispronounce things, let me know. At 6'2", 249 pounds, this defensive end ran a 4.62 at his pro day. And this guy has been a leader since he came at Georgia. He was actually a captain when he was a freshman. This guy's got big arms, a big frame. He's very aggressive at the point of attack. And the way he can keep his balance and able to bend himself, get the leverage on an offensive tackle. I feel like this is something that they need for the Atlanta Falcons when you're talking about having to face Tom Brady, Sam Darnold. I feel like if they can get pressure on him, he can easily disrupt what the Panthers want to do. And let's even mention Jameis Winston's name. He could possibly be the starter. And so I feel like you need an edge rusher to give you a chance against your competition in the NFC South. So let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. And the interesting thing about the number 8 pick is similar to the Falcons at 4. There's a lot of trade talking about with the Carolina Panthers, about the Carolina Panthers potentially trading down. And so you could draft a wide receiver. There's a lot of wide receivers that will possibly be available, like Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. They could look at defensive back, but again, depending on where they land, I think Etienne could be there as well. J.C. Horn, I think those two guys could be valuable picks right there. But it makes me wonder what they're going to do at the offensive line position. This may not be a first round thing, but I feel like they need to get an offensive line somehow. And there's a guy that is not being talked about despite being first team All-American the last few years. And that is Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle from Alabama. That's right, the Alex Leatherwood. The Leatherwood that said in a post in the New York Post that he was scared of demon cats. I'll show you the post in the video right there. But yeah, it would be very ironic if the Panthers picked Alex Leatherwood. But let's get past that humorous clip for a second and focus on what he's good at, man. And the fact that he has been matched up against the toughest competition in the last 4 years, been able to protect guys like Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and again, Mac Jones last year. When you're talking about facing defenses like Ohio State and Clemson and Alabama's sack record, you know, when it comes to the guys in the Division I and the top ones, their offensive line is known for keeping their quarterbacks upright. And Alex Leatherwood at the left tackle position seems to do that. Now, the reason why his name isn't mentioned as much is because people doubt his explosiveness. People doubt his toughness and quickness. These are things that he can improve. Lance Zierlein, if you look at his evaluation for him on NFL.com, compares him to Cameron Ervin, which means he might even better be suited on the inside at offensive guard. But I feel like I said, when you talk about the competition he's dealt with over the last few years, I feel like he's definitely battle tested. He could improve in those areas, but I feel like nonetheless, if you're the Panthers and you, like I said, you want to, see what you got in Sam Darnold, because they haven't picked up his 5th-year option yet. They'll probably wait till after the season to determine if he's their quarterback. Then you got to give him some protection. You got to give Sam Darnold a chance to prove himself that he could be a starter in the NFL. And let's focus on the defensive side, because like I said, they're gravitating on a lot of defensive backs. And like I said, at number 8, it might be a stretch. Etienne, again, J.C. Horn could be there. And even if they trade back, there's a few cornerbacks that will be available. Greg Newsome is one. Asante Samuel Jr., keep an eye on him in this draft, because he's been getting a lot of calls and meeting with a lot of teams leading up to the NFL draft. I think that's a guy he can gravitate towards. But let's see when they go to the safety position, because their defensive coordinator specializes in safeties. Could it be Trevin Morey, or could they wait until maybe rounds 2 or 3 to get a safety. I think there's a guy that's been climbing up boards, and guys that, like I said, you know, safety is not really a strong class. Honestly, not just this year, but most years. But there's always guys that seem to climb up. I remember J.C. Bates III wasn't really highly evaluated, but obviously has become one of the best safeties in the league in Cincinnati. So getting on to the safety, I feel like the Panthers could pick Jamar Johnson, the defensive back from Indiana. Now, he's a versatile one. The reason why I say defensive back is because he can play cornerback and safety. So he can be utilized in so many different ways. At 6 foot, 205 pounds, running 4.58 at his combine. He's very mature. He's very good at making his reads and also be able to track the ball while it's in the air. He's got excellent ball skills, and he's definitely got an understanding of the game at the defensive back position. When you're talking about, you know, defenses usually rely on linebackers, particularly the middle linebackers, that kind of have that understanding and get the defenses squared off and make sure they're at their spots. I feel like Jamar Johnson can do just that. And now we can finally finish off with the New Orleans Saints, who had to say goodbye to Drew Brees after all these years. Man, probably the best free agent signing in NFL history, alongside Reggie White, who signed with the Green Bay Packers, of course. But man, you can't deny the impact that he had on the community of New Orleans, giving them their first Super Bowl, going from mediocrity to a constant Super Bowl contender. And so I feel like, you know, they're hoping to move on. That's probably the reason why they re-signed Jameis Winston, because maybe they're hoping that he could, you know, restart his career in New Orleans, you know, and maybe show that he's mature enough to not throw a bunch of interceptions. The last time he had a full year as a starter, he threw 30 interceptions. And so hopefully Sean Payton has tweaked him a little bit and obviously can, you know, make big plays without forcing them. And so obviously to make big plays, you know, I feel like you need to start at the defensive side though for a second. They were solid defensively. I think this was an underrated defense last year. You're talking about the rise of Trey Hendrickson, which, by the way, he is now in Cincinnati right now, but he was tied with Aaron Donald with sacks, so they were definitely able to get pressure. They had a lot of playmakers, and they definitely showed it. Obviously, the Buccaneers were too much in the divisional round, but I feel like, you know, they can get back to that if they can address the interior defensive linemen. Now, this is a tough class, and I've already mentioned two, but even those two I mentioned, Levi Wazurski and Davion Nixon, probably won't be drafted in the first round. So you're wondering, is it worth it drafting any defensive tackle in the first round? Well, if there is a defensive tackle worth drafting in the first round, it may end up being Christian Barmore, defensive tackle from Alabama at 6'4", 310 pounds. This guy is explosive and disruptive off the line, and into those gaps, he just able to break down a play. He can even take down double teams. That's how strong he is. And man, he's just very explosive with his punches and the way he can use his hands to get leverage and push offensive linemen aside. I feel like if there's any defensive tackle that's worthy of it, and there's a lot of teams that do defensive tackles in this draft, it would be Christian Barmore. And unfortunately, he may not end up hearing his name till later in the first at best. But let's go to the wide receiver, because I mentioned Jameis Winston, and yes, they have Michael Thomas, but Emmanuel Sanders is in Buffalo. Jared Cook is no longer with the team. They do have Traquan Smith, who I believe is a decent receiver, but I feel like he's best served at the slot position. So you wonder what they can do at the wide receiver position. And there's a wide receiver that I feel like can definitely help attack the ball vertically down the field, and that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver out of USC, the brother of Aquinius St. Brown, who was drafted a few years ago out of Notre Dame by the Green Bay Packers. When you look at this guy, you talk about wide receivers able to track the ball, and when a play breaks down and when the quarterback is scrambling, this guy is an excellent improviser. I mean, along with his route running too, the way he cuts is remarkable. He can also be able to track the ball when the play breaks down and able to make a big play. You talk about the way he's been able to attack the ball vertically down the field. He's an excellent deep threat, and he kind of reminds me similar of Mike Evans. Obviously, Mike Evans is significantly taller, but when you talk about his route running abilities, the way he can catch those 50-50 balls, and yeah, I feel like he's not a wide receiver that can easily be taken down, and so I feel like he can definitely be a great complement to Michael Thomas, and definitely help Jameis Winston find his legs in the NFC South. And that is where we end this segment of Draft Needs. Is the last one, and man, it has been a long journey. These Draft Needs videos really got me started, and we are less than a week away from the NFL Draft, which means I will be soon publishing my one and only mock draft. If you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, I'll let you guys know that it was a three-part. That's right, 3 parts to my mock draft, since it's so big, but that just means triple the fun. And yeah, a lot has happened since I first published my videos. I have now 20 plus subscribers, and I know that seems small, but we don't look down on small beginnings here at Your Average Joes. I also want to thank Anthony Garcia. If you haven't seen already, I changed my brand. I got a new logo, and it's all thanks to Anthony Garcia and Anthony Garcia Design. If you guys have any design needs, I will put the link to his website in the description below, anthonygarciadesign.com. And also, don't forget to subscribe to Your Average Joes, and make sure don't miss on any of my videos, and also share the word. It's a new upcoming channel, so it all comes from your support and you guys telling your friends about Your Average Joe Sports Network. Have a good day, everybody.